What movie would be better if it didn't have a happy ending? Rambo's original ending was great, where he ends up killing himself because of PTSD and not being able to readjust to society, etc. But it didn't test well with the focus groups, so they changed it to be more positive. And then obviously it spawned sequels which turned the series a bit more campy and lost the end. But I think if they'd have kept the original ending it might not have done so well in the theaters, but would be looked back on as a bit more of a poignant story. And lost the original message a bit. I think you mean the later movies lost the original message completely. An old one. Bid My Fair Lady. It's based on the play Pygmalion by Bernard Shaw, and in that version Eliza realizes Henry treats her terribly and she deserves kindness, so she leaves him. The musical movie version is the complete opposite of that and annoys me more than it should. Agreed. I thought her ending was kind of sad because of that. She lost all her old friends and her old life because she didn't fit into lower class society anymore, and now she has to settle for being married to her tutor who mainly likes showing her off and not her as a person. Legend of Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. The last 20 minutes of the film tie up all the loose ends, but they don't match the atmosphere of the rest of the film. It would have worked if they'd taken more time to establish his character as a good detective. They showed he was smart with science, but he could have been more competent. The Golden Compass. The movie specifically made the ending a happy one, deviating from the source material in a major way. The movie stopped early. It wasn't really much of an ending. The TV show is much better. Wonder Woman. The lesson near the end is that the god of war doesn't exist and it's just men who are fighting without supernatural encouragement. Then the real god of war arrives and that lesson gets ignored. It would have been better movie if they left out the god of war and Wonder Woman couldn't do anything to stop man's violent nature. Yeah, they try to work around that by having him say stuff like, oh, I only nudge them, this is what they're really like. But yeah, it kinda undermines the whole narrative of a naive WW who has to discover that this is the way the world works when there is a literal god of war pulling strings. The Hobbit, but not in the way you think. The big issue with those movies is that they focus too much on the ring, when in reality, it wasn't super dangerous at that point. The whole point was that Gandalf doesn't suspect anything yet. It should have just been a magic ring until the very last scene, where Bilbo stands at his porch, and all of a sudden starts frantically looking for his ring, only to give it the look. Bam. Cut to black. None of this full circle crap. Cut out old Bilbo and Frodo. Just end the happy fairy tale with the revelation that something is wrong. The original ending of Little Shop of Horrors should have stayed. Seymour wasn't a good person. He is a piece of crap. When you fuel your own selfish desires like this, it can transform into a huge problem, and everyone suffered because of it. Honestly, Audrey 2 should have won. Seymour doesn't deserve a happy ending, but I must say in the original ending, I really hate the part where the old people are relaxing and then get attacked by Audrey 2. It makes it a bit hard to watch. But the rest of the ending is just pure epic and terrifying in a good way. The musical still has that ending. Little Shop of Horrors is so much better when OG Audrey and Seymour end up dead and Audrey 2 takes over the world. It's a much better character arc for everyone involved, especially Seymour. At least when he and OG Audrey died there were some freaking consequences for murder. I was really confused when it was announced that The Descent, Part 2 was being made, considering that Sarah, the last character left alive, dies right at the end of the film. Was this going to be a sequel investigating the disappearance of the cavers? Was it going to be a prequel? It turns out, neither. The end of the original film was rewritten for American audiences after test screenings revealed that they thought the original ending was too depressing. I am of the opinion that the original ending was far more powerful and horrifying, but I suppose that filmmaking is a money-making enterprise and North America is a huge market. It just feels weird to have a sequel to a cut of a film that was never released theatrically in the UK. As a North American, I want to say that your thoughtful and interesting comment is not positive enough for me. Please change it. Have a great day. The original script to Mrs. Doubtfire apparently had the parents getting back together, but they decided to go with the ending we know today instead to show kids that the world doesn't end just because mom and dad stay apart. Passengers. Chris Pratt dying and leaving Jennifer Lawrence with the decision of being alone or waking up another person from hypersleep would have saved that movie. The Devil Wears Prada. In the book, Andy does not give the clothes to her co-worker Emily. She sells them in a second-hand store to pay rent. And most of all, Miranda doesn't send an "Oh, Andy is great, you should hire her" letter to the magazine. They give a cookie-cutter ending. Pretty Woman. In the original ending, he just dumps her back in the street. But test audiences didn't like it, so they tweaked the movie and completely changed the ending. Made it a love story instead of what it was originally written as. Gives the whole movie a different meaning. The original was much more gritty. Julia Roberts was a drug addict in the original. You should see the episode of Always Sunny, Frank's Pretty Woman. I have a feeling the writers agree with you. Back to the Future 3 should have ended with Doc leaving a hidden message in the past for Marty, or delivering him another letter, thanking him for his friendship and letting him know that he's content living out his days with Clara. I hate that flying freaking steampunk train and Doc's Willy Wonka butt clothes and that creepy child. It still would have been a happy ending, I guess. Just a bittersweet one rather than an all-out goof. This may seem dumb, but in Frozen 2 I hated the ending. The entire movies felt like it was lost, and then right at the end when stakes were finally there and something could have been lost, nope, Elsa rides in on her water horse and saves the day. People like to say it's just a kids movie. Relax whenever I bring this up, but plenty of kids movies and TV shows have dealt with this kind of stuff and many are still loved to this day. Imagine how cool an ending would be where after the kingdom was destroyed we get a small montage of the citizens of Arendelle and the Lost Forest working together to rebuild the kingdom, showing that now they can finally be united as one instead of that stupid ending where Elsa leaves again. Yet, it felt weird to me that none of the Northuldra people attended Anna's coronation. I saw some supposed concept art where the town was rebuilt with a forest motif in the architecture to include them, but it was a while ago. Fight Club. Spoiler, in the book he winds up in a psychiatric hospital, which, let's face it, bit more realistic. Spoiler. He's convinced he's in heaven, but the hospital is full of employees who are part of Project Mayhem and are plotting to get Tyler back. It's real for Carrot. Chuck actually liked the movie ending. Thought it was better than his original ending. Breakfast at Tiffany's. The ending of the book was that Paul lets her go. The point of the book was a critique on the author's mother who would use people and run from her problems like Holly. She spends most of the movie being charmingly crappy and it all works out. Boo. I can't believe no one's mentioned 28 Days Later. The official release that was in theaters DVDs has Jim, Hannah, and Selena in some fairy tale but cottage in the mountains knitting a hello quilt, and they're seen by a fighter jet. In the original ending, Hannah and Selena take Jim to an empty hospital and try to save him, but he dies on the table. Selena tells Hannah that they have to keep moving, and the last shot is of them still wearing the dresses, covered in blood, carrying guns, and presumably walking towards their death. It was changed to the happy ending because test audiences didn't like how sad and hopeless the original felt. TLDR. Test audiences are terrible things. This is one of the few times I prefer the saccharine ending. I wanted Jim to live. I might have accepted an ambiguous drive into darkness. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie and Grandpa Joe blatantly ignored Wonka's request that no one try the fuzzy lifting drink. The only reason Charlie was able to relinquish the gobstopper was because he was the only one to evade catastrophe. He, Marizo, Grandpa Joe, were no more deserving for the empire than the other kids. Obligatory our Grandpa Joe had. Law-abiding citizen. It wasn't happy, but the bad guy certainly didn't win. You could argue he did because Fox said, "I don't make deals with murderers anymore," and walked into the sunset. But what a load of crap. Even if Fox decides to leave his legal practice, the cause Butler was fighting and killing for was just another fart in the wind. If you ask me, he should have taken out that meeting, threaten the president to gain a pardon, then run for president to institute legal reform, win, and then stack the Supreme Court. Bada bing bada boom. I'd like to have more realistic romance movies where they build up a great romantic relationship and all seems perfect and then he or she just leaves because of some crap. Because that's reality. Name some romantic movies where this should happen at the end. The breakup. I thought they were going to get back together and was surprised when they didn't at the end. Not a movie, but Game of Thrones should have ended with the others overrunning Westeros because the humans couldn't put aside their differences and cooperate. Would have been way better than this. Who has a better story than Bulls LOL. I think a suitable ending would have included losing King's Landing to the others, waiting until the majority of the army was in King's Landing and then detonating the wildfire beneath the city, sacrificing the capital and a significant portion of the population to deal a massive blow to the others. The recent Mortal Engines movie shat all over the ending from the book to make a happy ending instead. Not only is this a stupid way to treat the story we've loved for decades, it completely ruins any chance for a sequel, as the rest of the story sort of relies on what happened at the end. Mind you, that film has a lot of problems. I'll never understand why scriptwriters are given a story, one that's won multiple awards, fans across the globe, and had gained enough interest to make into a movie, and think I can do this better, completely changing characters, events, and the story. Artistic license is one thing, but most scriptwriters are not award-winning authors and have no business changing things so drastically. Harry Potter films had the same problem, albeit with less drastic changes. Exactly, this is basically the issue with the Percy Jackson films, that they ignored Rick Riordan's feedback thinking they knew their audience better and completely ruined the movie. At least there's a second chance with that one. Hear me out. Spoilers below obviously. Men in Black 3. If Agent J sacrificed himself for Agent K and actually died, it would completely change the feeling of the whole trilogy. That would have meant that Agent K knew that Agent J would die eventually, and that would become the reason he always kept a certain distance between them. Understanding that the whole point of Agent J's existence is to protect the Earth and to be stuck in a time loop. The loop itself would mean that becoming an agent is the cause of his father dying, while the father's death is the cause of him being an agent. Thus it would make all of Agent J's life and eventually death more heartbreaking. I love the ritual, but I felt like the ending could have been a bit darker. Still a good ending, but the sense of inescapable doom was kind of undone in the last minute. Interesting. I just thought the whole movie was really about the main character having to overcome fear, and him being able to finally do it at the end was kind of the payoff. But I suppose that could have still happened in a different, darker scenario. Can I say Harry Potter? Books or movies? I'm a fan of dramatic bittersweet endings, so I would have loved for Harry to actually die in order to defeat Voldemort. The ultimate sacrifice. I know with the explanation of the magic protection his mother gave him, the survival works, but it seems kinda too easy if he survives again. You know, I kinda like the idea of a tribute to him after the war, like a big painting of him in Hogwarts or something. Might be the only one saying it here, but Wonder Woman. It's assumed the war is caused by Ludendorff, as we're led to believe he is Raz, but when he is killed the war continues. Once the true Raz is killed, suddenly all combatants change their mind and the war ends. I know it's all fictional Greek mythological magic, but I really liked the sense of we killed the bad guy but everyone is still fighting. The film could have had a message that there are people who are just evil, and soldiers are just following orders. Instead a magic veil is lifted and suddenly everyone is no longer angry. It really could have sent a realistic message about humanity, and instead it took the cheap way out. People are bad and kill each other because of God. Magic is really lame. They should have just scrapped the third act, and ended it off with Chris Pine sacrificing himself with a plane. The villain fight was awful, and ruined the point of the movie. My Sister's Keeper. No spoilers, but man did they ruin the ending by making it a happy one. It should have been like the book, so much more impactful. The book ending was lazy and stupid. Anna's death was purely for shock value, and very manipulative on behalf of Picoult. If she wanted Anna to die, it could have been from complications in surgery, because we know in the end she did want to give Kate her kidney. The car accident was a cheap plot device. The movie ending was much better. It was sad but cathartic. How Dear John ends honestly pisses me off. Honestly, the whole movie pisses me off. You fall in love over 2 weeks. You go away and she moves on. You're heartbroken. Come back and her new man is dying. So you sell your father's coin collection to pay for him to get better. He dies and then you get back together? So stupid, lol. Any movie that kills off a character and then brings them back for some bull's reason at the very end to force a happy ending. It's okay to keep them dead sometimes. Just feels like they're fishing for those sad emotions to get you invested, and then they make those emotions totally irrelevant. Spoilers for the rise of Skywalker ahead. As an example, and maybe people will disagree, but Chewie surviving that explosion was just such a complete waste. They took a moment that was heartbreaking and real and completely invalidated it. One of my biggest pet peeves with movies. The Princess Diaries. I like Chris Pine in the second one, but it completely deviates from what actually should have happened. She should have taken her place as queen without a boyfriend. But she kinda did. She became queen and then chose to be back with him. 50 Shades of Grey. It is a depiction of an abusive relationship. Had they ended it by her realizing crap, this is wrong and getting away fast, great. Had he eventually harmed her or even killed her, realistic. Still sad. However, they choose to paint it as romantic. Happy ending. The people who unironically enjoy 50 Shades of Grey would not have enjoyed any other ending. It's the ultimate corny dumb fantasy. Of course it had to end with her literally barefoot and pregnant in their picture perfect backyard walking off into a field of flowers with her now tamed husband. Meet Joe Black. I haven't seen it in ages, and I came away from watching it with two thoughts that have always stayed with me. 1. When Brad Pitt gets hit by the car, it is unintentionally hilarious. 2. At the end, when Anthony Hopkins, don't remember his character's name, it has been a while, walked over the bridge. Cut to credits right there. Beautiful ending. I can't believe that nobody have mentioned Cujo. Holy crap, the ending of the book left me so shaken up that I needed a good 5 minutes to let it sink in, while the film had the everything will be okay freezer frame ending. James Cameron's Avatar. Spoilers for an 11-year-old movie below. About 2/3 of the way through the movie, the corporate soldiers are burning the sacred tree. The Na'vi are fighting back and losing. Jake Sully gets pulled out of the Avatar tank, and all is lost. He gets tossed into a prison cell, gives a final line, something like, "I was a soldier who thought he could bring peace. Sooner or later, though, you always have to wake up." Then, the screen fades to black. For several seconds, when I was watching in the theater, I thought the movie was over, and I got shivers. Up until that moment, it was a standard gringo fantasy. After that moment, it goes right back into being one. In that moment, though, it felt like something profound. I wish they'd had the balls to just roll the credits then and there. First Blood. Rambo dies in the book, which I read in high school a few years before the film was released. Then there would have been no jingoistic sequels. The Dark Knight Rises. I love that they got the bomb out of the city and everyone lived. But one part that I hated about the ending is when Alfred sits down at a table in Italy, grabs the paper and looks up, smiles. Then it shows Bruce. That's a scene that could so easily be a classic Nolan ending, but it wasn't. If they showed Alfred, he smiles, then cut. I feel like that would be a perfect ending. They signed up for 3 movies. They did 3 movies. Everyone thinks he's dead. Just leave the thought. Why do you have to confirm anything? I was okay with it because cliffhangers not confirming has become way too popular. But I agree they didn't have to show Bruce himself, but Alfred smiling would have indeed been good enough given the foreshadow earlier. Any movie where 2 characters fall in love after staring at each other for 5 seconds while soft music plays. Realistically, they should realize that they aren't meant for each other. I remember being dragged to see a Jennifer Aniston film that ended in them not being together. I can't remember the title or most of the plot. Fell asleep, but I do remember thinking, oh, at least it has one redeeming feature. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. There were a lot of things that could have been better, and the ending is one of those. She is a Palpatine, not a Skywalker, goddammit. I read an interesting idea regarding Children of Men. What if the 2 of them are out in the boat looking around, and then the movie ends? Giving that movie an ambiguous ending might be too much. To be fair, that movie is already bleak enough, and dark enough, that the ending is one of few minimal nice moments. Brazil by Terry Gilliam. Oh wait, he actually did manage to get the cut of the movie with his originally envisioned ending released. The studio-backed happy ending is pretty ludicrous. Solo. Han Solo wasn't a freaking good guy with a conscience before A New Hope. I wanted to see a Star Wars heist movie without some huge boner for doing the right thing. Disney sucks. I still like the book version where he started out good-natured but had it burnt out of him by a series of betrayals and losses. Wreck-It Ralph. I feel like him sacrificing himself for everyone else, including those who didn't accept him, was a really good ending to his character. He accepted himself despite never receiving validation from the other characters. I kinda felt like him being saved at the end was a cop-out for a happy ending. I think it would have been a more impactful lesson that self-worth is given to yourself, and you don't need others' validation to feel good about yourself. Yet at the end, they give him all the rewards and praise, which is the very opposite of what they were teaching. But you know, kids movie and all. Oh man, I don't know if my heart could have taken him actually dying. It gets me every time he starts reciting the villain support motto on the way down. Hollywood ruined the remake of I Am Legend sort of. Not that the ending was happy, but they simplified it and it basically just means that most of the movie's foreshadowing is left without explanation. The whole story is about a monster who hurts people, but the ending is supposed to reveal that the monster was Neville, who had been abducting the people who had been transformed by the virus. They still had social bonds and are revealed to be somewhat conscious. That is the I Am Legend part. He was seen to the virus people as the boogeyman who kidnapped them in their sleep. They foreshadow a lot of it, but in the end they just went with the more shallow climax with heroes saving woman and child from human-eating monsters. Such a waste. The Rise of Skywalker. It would have been epic if Rey turned the dark side and then Ben Solo would have to try to turn her back. She should have died, and Ben was the Rise of Skywalker. They had the perfect moments to have him redeemed and take up the mantle again after leaving his name behind. The Circle. I believe the novel's ending may expose the inventor's plan to stop the inventor of the Circle from shutting it down, which he wanted to due to the danger of power the company would gain. And my aluminum foil hat tells me that the change is only due to popular culture going down the same path of anti-privacy and companies wanting to achieve exactly that. Control over the public by controlling the mediums of social interaction. Even though, great book and good movie worth a watch. Edge of Tomorrow. Great movie, but the ending is happy and it's like, what in the dang heck? You just retconned the movie. Like, literally everything was undone, by chance, and they get a happy ending. It just feels forced and I hate forced happy endings. If it feels like someone crammed it in, I don't like it. It needs to flow. The book it was based on, All You Need Is Kill, had a much better but darker ending. Exclamation point. The loop keeps resetting if there's more than one person with the reset power, so Rita forces the protagonist to kill her. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.